What's up, y'all? Brandon from the 138 Automotive Alliance out here on my property. Gonna do a review on my 1982 Mercedes 300D. See that thing right there? Beautiful, isn't it? This is the W123 chassis, which I believe they began producing in 1976. Maybe 77 was the first model year. Made them up until 1985, maybe 86 in some markets. They had the sedan, this one, four-door, which is the 300D. Then they had the 300CD. They had, that was the coupe. Then they had the 300TD, which was the touring or the wagon, and those are the diesel variants. I don't know all the and the 240, which was sedan, no coupe or no wagon in the 240, at least in the US market. So they had some gas versions too. I don't know those because I own the diesel. I'm sure some of those are great as well, but not knowledgeable on them, so you can look those up if you're interested. But I have owned this car about 5 or 6 years now, and I bought it because my grandpa, and I'll show you a picture up there, had an old Mercedes diesel, and I just had fond childhood memories of that. And that wasn't his only Mercedes diesel, so kind of always knew that I wanted one, and was looking for something older that could be a reliable daily driver. Was first looking at the Volvo 240s and couldn't find the right one. Really wanted a wagon manual, couldn't find it. Came across this guy in a search and decided to go check it out, and I fell in love, y'all. Fell in love. So how could you not like the prestige of a Mercedes Benz? Although, you know, this was only a couple $1,000, so I don't know what kind of prestige it has, but there's something about this car. It wasn't made to be beautiful, but it is, because all the design work that Mercedes put into this car is unreal. I mean, it's so far ahead of its time in a lot of regards that I don't think Mercedes ever did a better job than this. So that's my opinion. I'm biased a little bit, but it's definitely an arguable point on what is the best Mercedes ever made. I think this is it. They made about 2.7 million of them, so parts are still available and cheap, and they're easy to work on if you're willing to put in the time to learn and get your hands dirty. And if you're going to do all the work yourself, the cost of ownership is not too bad. They drive pretty comfortably, not the most powerful vehicle in the world, but they weren't meant to be. I get about probably 27 miles per gallon diesel in this. Improved a little bit with the manual swap, because I did a manual swap in this. These were not available in the US market with a manual, at least in the 5-cylinder turbo diesel. The 240D you could get in a manual, and there's some gas ones you could get in a manual. So I bought a 240D that had a locked up engine and swapped out the manual transmission and put it in to that car. But now in my barn I have a parts car down there. Not one, but I have two parts cars. I got this one too. First is a parts car. This is a 300D 1978. It is the NA version of the 5-cylinder, or OM617. That is what this engine's called, OM617. And the 4-cylinder is the OM616. I haven't started this vehicle in about 2 years. Came out here, threw a battery in it, and it started up. So kind of a testament to how reliable these cars are. That car back there had actually sat in the field for about 10 years. Some clean fuel, valve adjustment, fuel filters, kind of a fuel system purge, and I got it running. It was just supposed to be a parts vehicle, so I didn't think I'd get it running, but I did. So I came out here today to throw a battery in that one, see if it started back up, and it did. And I'm gonna post it online for sale because I only need one parts car, trying to downsize from 7, I think 7 vehicles is where I'm at now, to maybe 6, and then I can upgrade, get back up to 7 again. Let's take a look around this car in the interior. The interior is clean, and this thing has 248,000 miles, at least on the clock, which does not work right now because my odometer is broken. Gonna fix that soon, but probably around 250,000 miles. Wood still looks nice in here. This is not leather. This is a material they called MB Tex, which is a simulated leather. I mean, look at that. The headliner is still fully intact. The seats are great. The wood still looks nice. Got a little bit of the veneer cracking around the shifter, but nothing too bad for a car that's over 40 years old and 250,000 miles. This thing has held up. So I'll give you a look at some of the other spaces. Yeah, I got the Mercedes Benz on the car match. You know your baller if you got that. And the manual swap wasn't too bad with this. Having the parts vehicle to go to, and just take the parts off of. The main things were the drive shaft. I had to get the drive shaft shortened and balanced, which I sent that off to Springfield, Missouri Powertrain Industries, I think they're called. Did that work for me. That was the only thing I couldn't do myself. I guess aside from I had the flywheel off the 240 I used. Some people are buying a heavier Euro flywheel because they say they get drivetrain vibrations, but I just went with the one I had. There's some that were balanced to the crank. This one seemed to be neutral balanced. I did mark the orientation of the flywheel and the position of the engine in both cars and tried to line it up. Took it to this engine builder in my local area and asked him if he thought it was neutral balanced or balanced to the crank. He was pretty certain it was neutral balanced, and went ahead and redid the surface on the flywheel for me, and I did a new clutch, pressure plate, throw-out bearing, slave cylinder, master cylinder. Just kind of did all the stuff you want to do if you were want it to be like new. So I wanted to do that so I didn't have any problems in the future, and this thing's just ran great. Done a couple valve adjustments on it. I did the EGR delete there and there. Turbo's hidden underneath there. It doesn't produce a large amount of boost, but enough to get it going down the road. I did the rear CV axles in it. I've done brakes on it. These things actually have rear independent suspension and disc brakes for something that came out in 1976. That's pretty amazing. And just listen to the way these doors close. It's just solid. It's just a solid car. Still real solid. I guess the only major issues, got some blemishes there, a little bit of rust starting there, in there, but this is a daily driver. This isn't a show car. Not a daily driver. Okay, I lied. I drive this weekly, but it's not a show car. It hits the road, it gets you from point A to point B, and you look good doing it. And I'll tell you what, my gauge of a car that you should own is when you are getting out of it and you walk away, do turn back and look at the car and just be like, yeah, that's my car. That's my metric for determining if I have the right vehicle or not. They call these the bunt style wheel. I think this was an upgrade over the hubcap potentially. So aluminum wheel, I repainted those so they look a little bit better, but I actually prefer the ones on this car over here. Look at all this poison ivy growing up right in front of my car, man. Is this saying don't sell me or what? This tire has a leak, but I like these color matched hubcaps better. Tell me what you think. Also sprayed some peppermint in here to get rid of the mice, because mice like to come around the car and shit all over it. Little fuckers. Sorry for the language, but kind of upsets me. What's some other unique features of this car? Well, one, maybe not unique, but it does have this little first aid kit back here. Oh, that's locked. Let me open that up. And it has first aid kit. That cover's broken, but the first aid kit's still there. They have power windows on these from the factory. It does have automatic locks, but they work through the vacuum system. A lot of things work through the vacuum system. So it has this reservoir in the trunk, which under there, that black bubbly thing looks like an egg carton. Huge trunk, but it has air pressure in there, and so when the car's off, it can actuate some of the vacuum operated things like the automatic door locks. The HVAC actually operates off of vacuum pressure to switch between your different blends of heating and cooling and different options. So that kind of works through this. Part of it is that mono valve back there. The fuel shed off is right here, because that actually works off vacuum pressure. On the back of the vacuum, or on the back of the injector pump right here, is a little diaphragm that when you turn off the key, it sends vacuum pressure and closes, shuts off the fuel. So if your vacuum pump is bad, or you got a vacuum leak or whatever, you got to get under, pop the hood, and push that to cut fuel and turn it off. Power steering pump, your vacuum pump is right down there. Don't have working AC on this right now. Get that upgraded or repaired pretty soon, hopefully. And this piece right here, that's a piece that's actually hard to find these days, but most stuff on this car, there hasn't been a part that I haven't been able to find, from the littlest thing to the biggest thing. So these are great cars. I'm going to show you how it drives, and let me know what you think. Is this cool? Is it not? Let me know. Do you want to get one? Because that one's going to be for sale. It's a little rough, but it does run. So the OM617s are actually pretty popular for swaps. People swap them into Jeeps a lot. I've seen them in Ford Rangers. I've seen them in Toyota trucks, all kinds of things. So at the very least, someone will want to buy that one for the engine, even though it's the non-turbo, but still a reliable power plant and a good engine. So if I forgot anything, I'll put it in the description or put it in little subtitles on the video, and we'll go for a drive in this thing. Alright, inside the 82300D on a little drive. What is this like to drive? Well, let me put up the windows because I don't know how my audio will be, but you'll hear a lot that these things are slow, and they're not fast. This isn't a sports car, this is a passenger car, and I don't think they need to be fast. I don't think they're bad, really. I'm sure the 240D and the automatic is atrocious. Wouldn't buy one of those unless it's the manual, but this one is the 5-cylinder turbo diesel and it's manual swap, so it's pretty good. I'm in 3rd gear. My odometer's not working right now. Still not up to temp, so I'm not gonna push it too hard, but 4-speed transmission. I mean, this thing just chugs along. It's funny, these old Mercedes, you feel like they're revving high and they're louder than what we're used to in modern cars, but I swear when you're driving this thing on the interstate or something like that, at first 70 will feel fast and it feels like something's gonna explode, or it just doesn't seem right. But then the longer you go on the highway, the more the car wants to be pushed, and this thing redlines, well, it doesn't actually show red. 6,000 is the highest RPM that it shows. So I'm assuming somewhere around 5 is where it really starts to redline. But this thing will just chug along at 3,500 RPMs and just be happy and just get into the groove. I don't know if it's a diesel thing or what it is, but I'm just cruising on the back road on the way to my property, and you know, doing 55, 60 miles an hour, and it's louder in here than modern cars, but the thing just goes, and the way these cars handle is pretty good. It feels, the steering is good. It feels like it kind of hugs the road. It wants to handle the corners, like it wants to go through the corners, and it just hangs on and feels solid and level. I mean, it's not a sports car, but it's definitely, the suspension is set up better than other cars of its era, because this does have independent rear suspension. So I think a lot of cars were still, if they were rear-wheel drive, they were still solid axle at this time, probably in 1976 when these first came out. Independent rear suspension was pretty uncommon. And then rear disc brakes, these things have disc brakes on the back, so Mercedes really did things on this car that were ahead of its time. So it's not bad. Even driving today, for me, I think it's good. It definitely has character. It has a smell. Old cars have a smell, and there's just something about getting in a car and the smell. It's its own thing. It gives you another feel, and my goal is to have this car the rest of my life. I mean, we're 248,000 miles, which is probably 250 because the odometer's not working for some time. I got to take it out and fix a gear or something in it, so the speedometer cable is disconnected. But it just does good. You can still get parts for this thing. They're relatively cheap. They're not bad to work on if you figure out the little nuances and have a few different tools that might not be standard in your toolbox. You have to do get some things to work on them, but it's easy, it's satisfying, and they're a fun car to have, and you can pick them up pretty cheap. These are not going to be a valuable car, I don't think, at any point, or extremely valuable at any point, because they made so many of them. And the sedan like this is probably the least desirable configuration. Most people want the wagon. The CD is the coupe, and that one's a little more desirable than this, but you can pick these up cheap. So I'm going to continue on my drive, and when I get out to my property, you're going to see the other two W123s I have out there that are my parts cars. So I'll give you a quick glimpse of those, and I'm going to keep on driving. Hopefully you guys can get out and drive today.